Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Friday, February 6th, 2026.
It is.
And I want you to just take a second and picture the cinematic landscape right now. We are, I think it's fair to say, fully in the post-superhero fatigue era.
Oh, for sure. The bubble has, if not burst, at least deflated quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen the rise of video game adaptations, some good, some not so good.
Yeah.
We've even seen the return of the mid-budget rom-com, which has been great. But sitting on the throne of Hollywood, arguably, is one man.
Christopher Nolan.
Exactly. The man who made physics cool again with Oppenheimer. The man who made our own dreams terrifying with Inception.
Yeah.
He's now just a few months away. The release date is July 17th, to be exact, from dropping what might be his most ambitious project yet.
And that is saying something for him.
It really is. He is taking on the grandfather of all Western literature, Homer. He's adapting the Odyssey.
And it's a collision that, on paper, it just sounds absolutely perfect.
It does.
You have the director who is completely obsessed with time, with memory, with complex, non-linear structures. And he's taking on the original non-linear narrative. You have to remember, the Odyssey isn't told in a straight line.
No, not at all. It's a story of a man recounting his trauma, his whole journey, but completely out of order.
It's the original flashback movie.
It really is.
And the hype for this, it is palpable. You can feel it in the air. But, and this is why we're here today, the conversation surrounding this movie has taken a very sharp, and I think we have a very ugly turn.
A very ugly turn. We aren't seeing the usual debates, about whether he's filming on 70mm or IMAX or if he's using real ships versus CGI, that kind of thing.
No, the film nerd stuff has been completely sidelined.
It has.
Yeah.
Instead, we are looking at a stack of sources today that are describing this production in what I can only call apocalyptic terms.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. We're talking about a specific rumor that has triggered a complete meltdown in a very specific corner of the internet.
We are. We're analyzing a video transcript from a YouTube channel called The Trent Report and an article by the same author, John F. Trent, from a website called Fandom Pulse.
And we also have the user comments attached to that article, which are quite revealing.
They are. And the language here, you're right, it isn't film criticism, it's moral panic. They are calling the production toxic slime.
Toxic slime.
And they are warning that this film is an active danger to the concept of reality itself.
It is an incredible escalation, and it all centers on one specific casting rumor, doesn't it?
It does. It all comes back to the rumor that the actor Page, known to the world as Elliot Page, though our sources pointedly, and I mean pointedly, refuse to use that name.
Yes, that's a very important detail.
Is set to play the Greek god Hermes.
The messenger god.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack this. We need to understand not just what they are saying, but the internal logic of this backlash.
Exactly. Why does a casting rumor for a messenger god trigger a conversation about Sodom and Gomorrah? Where does that leap come from?
That's the question. We're going to look at the evidence, the ideology, and the proposed solution, which, believe it or not, involves ignoring the movie entirely to read a very specific translation of the book approved by a deacon.
It's a wild ride.
It is. So buckle up. Let's dive in.
Right.
First, we have to set the stage with the project itself, because this is Christopher Nolan taking on Homer. The Odyssey, this isn't just another summer blockbuster. This is the story.
It's a massive, massive undertaking. And for those of you who maybe haven't revisited high school English in a while,
Or maybe didn't enjoy it the first time around.
or that, yes, the Odyssey is the epic poem that chronicles Odysseus's 10-year journey home to Ithaca after the Trojan War.
It's the original road trip movie, essentially.
Right, yeah.
But, with significantly more monsters and divine intervention.
Significantly more. And our source material is actually good about highlighting the specific perils that are expected to appear.
Right.
We are talking about the Cyclops, Polyphemus, the one-eyed giant who, guess. It's terrifying stuff.
Yeah. Horror. And the sirens.
The sirens, yes. Those enchanting creatures whose song lures sailors to crash their ships on the rocks. And of course, Circe.
The witch goddess.
Right, Circe, who famously turns men into pigs. It is rich, dense, terrifying material. And we know Nolan is directing this for those are the base facts.
Okay, so that's the world. Now let's talk about the people he's putting in this world, because we do have some confirmed facts.
We do. Back in January of last year, so January 2025, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed
Right. We got Himesh Patel, Bill Irwin, and Samantha Morton, all fantastic character actors. They are confirmed as supporting cast.
And crucially for our discussion today, Page was announced in that exact same batch.
Yes, but And this is the absolute key to this whole thing. They didn't say who Page was playing.
No role was attached. The press release was just Pages in the movie, and that vacuum of information, that's where all speculation.
Right, but before we get to Page, we have to look at the other names that are mentioned in our source material, because they really set the temperature for the backlash.
That's a great point. The source brings up some very specific casting rumors involving other A-list stars.
They do. The source mentions rumors of Zendaya being cast as Athena,
the goddess of wisdom,
and Lupita Nyong'o, allegedly as Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships.
Now, in a typical film discussion, you might hear people debating whether Zendaya has gravitas for Athena or if Lupita fits the traditional vibe of Helen.
Sure, normal cast.
But that is absolutely not what is happening here. The source immediately frames these potential casting choices through a very specific, very political lens.
They aren't discussing acting chops at all.
Not even a little. The source labels this as part of the toxic slime that is the DEI agenda. That's a direct quote.
DEI being diversity, equity, and...
Correct. And the argument presented by the source, and the Trek report is very, very explicit about this, is that casting Zendaya, a Black actress, and Lupita Nyong'o, another Black actress, in these roles is a purely ideological act.
So they don't see it as best actor for the job.
No, they see it as a political box-checking exercise. And this sets the stage for the source's broader argument, which is that this film is prioritizing modern political messaging over the, quote, reality of the ancient Greek concept.
So the source is already on high alert. They are already primed to see this movie as woke or compromise before anything else happens.
But they are looking for it. And then we get to Page.
Yes. And this is where the Hermes hypothesis is.
I like that framing, the Hermes hypothesis.
Me too. Let's trace this, because the source actually does a pretty good job of mapping out how this rumor evolved. It didn't start with the source itself, did it?
No, they aren't breaking the news here. They are reacting to it, synthesizing it for their audience. So, according to the text, it all started with speculation from an outlet called Them. Now, it's important to note how the source describes them.
How so?
They call it an LGBTQ plus activist outlet.
Okay, so that immediately frames how the source views the information. They see the origin of the rumor as inherently biased and political.
Exactly. It's not just a news source. It's an activist outlet. So immediately following that January 2025 casting news, Them published a piece speculating that Page might play Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, or Hermes, the messenger god.
So that was just a maybe, just a kind of wouldn't it be cool if type of article.
Pure speculation. But then, 6 months later, another more mainstream geek culture outlet chimes in, Nerdist.
Okay.
And the source cites a Nerdist prediction that Page would, in fact, play Hermes. And the rationale Nerdist really interesting.
What was their reasoning?
They claimed the role requires someone who looks swift and lithe as the wind.
Swift and lithe as the wind. Looking at Page, I can see how you get there physically.
I tend to.
He has that runner's build, very agile. And Hermes is the trickster god, the messenger. He's not, Kratos from God of War. He's not a bodybuilder. He's quick.
From a purely casting director's perspective, it kind of makes sense. You can see the logic. But the source, our source, takes a major, major issue with this. They don't look at the physical description.
No.
They look at the biological image.
They view this as a fundamental alteration of the character, a corruption.
They refer to it specifically as a sex-swapped Hermes.
Because Hermes is a male god.
Exactly. And this brings us to the absolute core of the controversy regarding the actor. And we have to be very, very precise about what the source says here, because the language is incredibly intense, and it really does reveal their entire world.
Okay.
The source, across all their material, consistently refers to the actor as Ellen Page. They do not use the name Ellie, not once.
Which is a deliberate choice on their part. It's not an accident.
It is a statement. And they frame the casting not just as a woman playing a man in there, but as a specific political validation of the actor's identity.
Let's get into the specific quotes, because I want you, the listener, to understand the level of vitriol here. This isn't just, I disagree with this casting.
No, it's far beyond that. The source describes Page as, and I'm quoting directly, a woman who now pretends to be a man.
Horse hands.
They characterize the actor's transition as a delusion.
Wow.
And they even go so far as to describe gender-affirming surgery as self-mutilation and the actor's life as a tragic story.
Self-mutilation.
Yeah.
Tragic story. So when they see a rumor about Page playing Hermes, a male god, they don't see an actor playing a role.
No.
They see a production. They see Christopher Nolan and Universal playing along with what the source calls a delusion.
Precisely. To the source, casting Page's Hermes is an overt act of pushing gender ideology. It is seen as a concerted attempt to normalize the actor as male by placing them in a male role in a massive blockbuster film.
They believe the film is actively forcing the audience to participate in the actor's identity.
Yes. And the source claims they have evidence from Page himself, or herself, as would insist, that supports this entire theory. They think Page let the cat out of the bag in an interview.
Right. They point to an interview Page gave to People magazine. This was in October of 2025.
Yes. And there are two key parts to the quote they analyze.
Okay, let's unpack it. The first part is pretty standard stuff. Page said, I met with Chris and talked about the part, and then sat in the room and read the script. And, it was, of course, a big yes.
Right. That's standard actor fluff. I love the director. I love the script. We've heard that a million times.
A million times. But then Page adds this, and this is the crucial part for the source. Come back now. Being more just comfortable in yourself makes these sorts of projects more enjoyable.
Comfortable in yourself. That's the trigger phrase.
The source latches onto that phrase, like a magnet.
They do. They interpret comfortable in yourself as a direct one-to-one reference to the transition. And their logic, their deductive chain is this. Page feels comfortable because he is now living as a man.
Okay.
Therefore, if the project is enjoyable because of that comfort, the role must align with that identity.
So they think Page is saying, I can finally play a man on screen because I am now comfortable being a man in my real life.
That is the source's explicit reading of it. They argue that Page is, quote, clearly hinting here that she will be playing a male character.
And again, for the source, this is not a triumph of representation. It's not a positive thing.
No, it is a deception. They say it is impossible for Page to play a male character because in their view, she's still a woman. The biological reality as they see it trumps everything else.
It's a bit of a deductive leap, though, isn't it? Comfortable could mean so many things.
Oh, of course.
It can mean I'm older now, I'm more experienced as an actor, I'm sober, I'm not dealing with the pressures of being a young star anymore.
It could mean 100 different things, but confirmation bias is a powerful drug. If you are looking for a conspiracy, you will find it in a preposition.
And they don't see this as just an isolated incident, right? The source talks about a pattern. They believe Hollywood is doing this systematically.
They do. They bring up Netflix specifically as a sort of ground zero trend.
Right. They mention a superhero show, and it's heavily implied to be the Umbrella Academy, where the production accommodated the transition.
Right. They rode the transition into the show. The character Vanya became Victor. The source sees that as Hollywood capitulate the delusion.
And they also critique the first season of One Piece.
Yeah, the live-action anime adaptation. That seems like a random target at first.
A little bit, yeah.
But it fits their pattern. The source claims One Piece featured, quote, another female actor who is pretending to be a man playing a man.
And who are they talking about there?
They are most likely referring to the character Kobe, who is played by the actor Morgan Day, who is a trans man.
I see. So the source argues that Nolan and Universal are just following this trend set by Netflix.
Exactly. They see it as a systemic, industry-wide effort to push that gender ideology and to, in their words, remove the differences between men and women.
So in the source's worldview, the Odyssey has been infected. It's no longer just a movie. It's a vehicle for toxic slime.
Which leads them to their inevitable and, I guess, logical conclusion from their perspective.
Boycott.
Boycott.
Right. Section 4 of our deep dive here, the call to action. The source is not subtle about this at all. They are explicit. Avoid the film.
They are. They argue that buying a ticket is tantamount to supporting the agenda. They want the listener to reject the film entirely, to avoid supporting the erasure of differences between men and women.
So the transaction itself, buying the ticket, watching the movie, is framed as a moral compromise.
It is. And looking at the comments section on the Fandom Pulse article, it seems their audience is right there with them. This isn't just one guy shouting into the void. This message is resonant.
No, the sentiment in the comments is very strong and very synchronized with the article's main.
It really is. We have a user named Lancaster Marin, which is a very interesting...
Why is that interesting? What's the reference?
Lancaster Marin is the name of the old priest in The Exorcist, the one who fights the demon Pazuzu. So by choosing that name, the commenter is positioning themselves as a spiritual warrior fighting...
That sets a tone right there, doesn't it? And what does our Lancaster Marin say?
He writes, quote, Nolan had better get the film title right. He's not filming the Odyssey. He's filming Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah. That is biblical destruction. That is fire and brimstone. He is equating the casting choices in a movie with supreme moral corruption deserving of divine wrath.
It frames the film as a sin, an abomination, essentially. Yeah. It elevates a casting choice, full-blown theological crisis.
That's incredible. What else is in there?
Then you have a user with the very subtle name Demser Track. And this user writes, Ellen Page was the initial reason why I immediately determined that I will never watch this shit. Zen Dumpster was the second reason.
Zen Dumpster. The hostility is just so incredibly personal. It's not, I disagree with the casting. It's visceral, personal disgust. It's dehumanizing.
It is. And it highlights how these figures, Zendaya, have become something more than actors. They've become symbols in a culture.
Right. Their presence alone is enough to trigger a total rejection of the work. It doesn't matter if the cinematography is beautiful. It doesn't matter if the script is brilliant.
None of that matters. The presence of the symbol corrupts the whole project.
Which is such a stark contrast to how Page describes the experience.
It really is. In that same People interview, the one the source is evidence, Page talks about having a Chris Nolan and how it meant so.
Yeah.
You know, for the actor, it's a career highlight. A moment of artistic fulfillment and personal. It's a job they...
And for the source and the commenters, it's the end of Western civilization.
The disconnect could not possibly be wider.
So if we aren't supposed to watch the movie, what are we supposed to do? Because the source doesn't just say don't watch. They actually offer an alternative solution.
And this is where the deep dive gets really fascinating for me. This was such an interesting pivot in the source material.
It was.
Usually, these kinds of critiques just end with, go woke, go broke. But here, the source says, you're better off just to read the poem yourself.
The old, the book is better than the movie, are classic defense.
But here, it is deployed as a political and moral weapon. The source invokes what they call the 99.9%, that the source material is always superior, but the implication is much deeper.
What's the deeper meaning?
The book is pure. The book is the untainted truth. The movie is a corrupted ideological distortion of that truth.
But they don't just say read Homer, because Homer is tricky. Homer can be interpreted in 1,000 different ways over the last 3,000 years.
Exactly. You can't just let people read it on their own. They might come to the wrong conclusions. So they narrow the path. They recommend a specific
And which one is that?
They recommend the Fagles by Robert Fagel.
Okay, which is a standard, very well-regarded translation. We read Fagles in college. It's punchy, it's dynamic, it's very accessible.
It is. It's a great translation. But look at how the source validates this recommendation. They don't cite a literature professor from Yale or a classic scholar from Oxford.
Who do they cite?
They mention that this translation is recommended by someone named Deacon Harrison Garlick.
Deacon Harrison Garlick. Okay, so we are explicitly bringing the church into it now.
This appeal to a deacon aligns perfectly with the religious undertones we saw in the comments, like the Sodom and Gomorrah remark.
Right.
It reinforces the idea that reading the text is a more moral or traditional activity.
Yeah.
It's an attempt to sanction the reading list with religious authority.
And they don't stop there. They mention a podcast, too.
The Ascend podcast, yeah. Apparently, this podcast has an entire reading guide for the audience. So the source is curating a complete alternative cultural diet for its audience.
Think about that for a second. The message is, instead of going to the movies, eating popcorn, and consuming the toxic slime of Hollywood,
Right.
you should stay home. You should engage with the Ascend podcast. You should read the Fagles translation that has been approved by the deacon, and then you can connect with the truth of the original epic.
It's almost like they're trying to build a parallel cult, a self-contained
That's a great way to put it.
one where you can still enjoy the classics, these foundational stories, but without any of the modern contamination, as they would see it. It is a safe space for their ideology built on the foundation of ancient literature.
It's a retreat. It's saying the modern world is lost, so we are going back to the
That is exactly what it is. It's a retreat from modern interpretation back to a perceived purity of the past, may or may not have ever.
This brings us to the synthesis then, the bigger themes at play here. Because on one hand, this is a debate about adaptation.
It is, at its surface level. There is always a tension between the purists and the adapt. The source even admits that adaptations can sometimes enhance the source material, but generally holds to the view that the original king.
But this isn't really about whether the movie captures the spirit of the poem. It's not about whether they cut a scene with a minor god or changed a line of dialogue.
No, not at all. It's about what the casting represents. It's about what the source sees as a battle between reality and...
The source views the casting of Page as a direct attack on reality itself. And this is where the rhetoric gets really, really grandiose.
It does. The closing of the video's Trent report was, well, it was striking. It sounded less like a movie review and more like a sermon from a...
It absolutely was a sermon. The speaker looks into the camera and asks, why are you not afraid of God instead of man?
Why are you not afraid of God? That is a heavy, heavy question to ask in a YouTube video about a casting rumor for a summer blockbuster.
It reframes the entire discussion, doesn't it? It's not about entertainment, it's about courage. It's about spiritual warfare. The source urges his listeners to always speak the truth.
And the truth, in this very specific context, is their view on gender.
Exactly.
Correct. To them, refusing to use Page's preferred name or pronouns and refusing to accept this casting is a moral duty. It's an act of faith.
It's about fearing God, which to them means adhering to what they see as a divine biological order, rather than fearing man, which represents societal pressure to be politically correct or accepted.
So in their framing, watching Nolan's The Odyssey becomes an act of submission to man, while boycotting it is an act of reverence to God.
That is the binary they have constructed. There is absolutely no middle ground. You are either with the truth, the book, the deacon, the biological reality, or you're with a lie, the movie, the toxic slime, the delusion.
It's incredible how much weight is being put on this one cast. A choice, we should remind everyone again, that hasn't even been officially confirmed by the studio as of today, February 6, 2020.
That's the wildest part. We are strictly working off a Nerdist prediction and some early speculation from them.
But in the ecosystem of these sources, the speculation is enough. The possibility alone is a threat. They are reacting preemptively to stop it before it even happens.
So let's recap what we found in this deep dive. Christopher Nolan is releasing The Odyssey on July 17th. There is a strong, unconfirmed rumor, fueled by industry predictions, that Page will play the god Hermes.
And sources like the Trent Report and Fandom Pulse are framing this potential casting as a sex swap distortion driven by a DEI agenda and gender ideology.
They cite Page's own comments about feeling comfortable as proofs that the role is meant to validate the actor's transition the source vehemently rejects as a delusion.
And the result is a fierce call for a total boycott, with the source urging the audience to reject the toxic slime in favor of reading the Fagles translation of the original poem, guided by traditionalist religious.
It is a battle between two completely different ways of engaging with culture: consuming the modern, reinterpreted blockbuster, or retreating to the pure text as a way to safeguard one's value.
It leaves the listener with a very stark choice, as presented by the source. You can buy a ticket, or you can buy the book.
Or you could do both and decide for yourself.
Of course. But the source would argue that the mere act of buying the ticket is a compromise of your principles.
It's a lot to mull over. And here's a final thought I want to leave you with, something that really struck me while we were reading through all this.
Okay.
The source is absolutely obsessed with reality. They want real men and real women. They hate the idea of pretending. Their whole argument is built on a foundation of fixed, immutable identity.
Right. Biological essential.
Exact. But consider the source material itself. The Odyssey, and really all of Greek mythology, is teeming with transformation. It is defined by its fluidity.
That's very true.
I mean, the gods change shape constantly. Zeus becomes a swan, a bull, a shower of gold to get what he wants.
Circe turns men into beasts. Proteus, the old man of the sea, changes shape to avoid being captured and forced to tell the future.
And Tiresias, the ultimate example.
Tiresias, the blind prophet.
The prophet that Odysseus has to go to the underworld to consult. Tiresias, in the myth, famously lived part of his life as a man and part of his life as a woman. He experienced life from both sides of the gender divide.
That is a central part of his myth, that fluidity is baked into the very DNA of the mythology they claim to.
So it is provocative to consider. If the source material is defined by such radical fluidity and the deceptive nature of appearances, why does this specific source insist on such rigid, immutable categories for the actors who are portraying it?
That's a great question.
Is the truth of the myth in the fixed biology of the actor, or is it in the very human and very divine ability to shift and to change?
The source wants the text to be a fortress of stability, a rock, but the text itself is water. It shifts.
Something to think about while you wait for July.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.